The prayer this morning will be offered from the good delegate from Prince George's County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And in the spirit of yesterday, I offer you an Irish blessing for today. May the blessing of light be on you, light within and light without. May the blessed sunlight shine on you and warm your heart till it glows like a great peat fire, so that the stranger may come and warm himself at it, and also a friend. And may the light shine out of the two eyes of you, like a candle set in two windows of a house, bidding the wanderer to come in out of the storm. And may the blessing of rain be on you, the soft, sweet rain. May it fall upon your spirit, so that all the little flowers may spring up and shed their sweetness on the air. And may the blessing of the great rains be on you. May they beat down upon your spirit and wash it fair and clean, and leave there many a shining pool where the blue of heaven shines, and sometimes a star. And may the blessing of the earth be on you, the great round earth. May you ever have a kindly greeting for those you pass as you're going along the roads. May the earth be soft under you when you rest upon it, tired at the end of a day. And may it rest easy over you when, at the last, you lay out under it. May it rest so lightly over you that your soul may be off from under it quickly, and up and off and on its way to God. And now, may the Lord bless you all and bless you kindly. Amen.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 125 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 10th, 2023.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you. Good morning, Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the journal.
So ordered.
Okay.
Petitions, memorials, and other papers. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 9. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 700, Talbot County Speed Monitoring Systems, intersection of Maryland Route 333, Oxford Road, and Bonfield Avenue. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 828, vehicle towing or removal, parking lots, maximum fees. Favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 948, motor vehicle registration, exceptions for golf carts and low-speed vehicles, Cobb Island. Favorable amendments. Amendment 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments strike low-speed vehicles from the bill. Move the amendment.
Question for the... Come on. Guys, I'm trying to inform him. When you're talking, I can't hear. Give respect to the floor leader. Please. Thank you. Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 976, mold assessment and remediation standards. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters definitions and expands the entities that MDE must consult with in adopting regulations under the bill. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1005, Howard County Archery Hunting Safety Zone and Position of Archery Hunter. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1109, Prince George's County Economic Development Business Improvement Districts. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. House Bill 1109 is a local Prince George's County delegation bill that exempts the Prince George's County from the statewide Business Improvement District law and establishes a separate law for Prince George's County that authorizes the jurisdictions to establish business improvement districts. Amendment move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical, and amendment number 2 strikes the applicability of the bill's provisions to municipalities within Prince George's County. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now to adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1127, Harford County Advisory Plumbing Board. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1178, Calvert County Length of Service Award Program. Benefits. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 16. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 15, Condominium Sales Contracts Asbestos Disclosure. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam
Recognizing
Speaker.
the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendment number 1, amendment clarifies that a unit owner must only disclose whether they know of asbestos in the specific unit to be sold. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 169, Public Utilities, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Programs, Energy Performance Targets, and Low-Income Housing. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the charge of the Green and Healthy Task Force and provides for a study of small and minority contractors in the clean energy industry. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 246, alcoholic beverages, Class 4 limited winery license, food service. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My apologies. As amended, House Bill 436 authorizes, sorry? Oh, 246. Oh, 16, my bad.
246.
Madam Speaker, may I special orders till the end of the calendar?
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 authorizes license holders to prepare food on site, allows certain light fare to be served, and requires license holders to obtain a separate retail license if they want to offer a more extensive food service. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report. The amendment is adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 258, Queen Anne's County alcoholic beverages licenses, residency requirement. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chair of the
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
chair of the committee.
So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 adds Caroline County to the bill and clarifies provisions related to residency of an applicant. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 282, financial institutions, mortgage loan originators, independent contractors. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 505, elevator safety, privately owned single-family residential elevators, inspection and registration requirements. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 prohibits the commissioner from disclosing certain information to the public and requires the commissioner to delete the registration upon completion of the final inspection. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 513, investor-owned utilities, prevailing wage enforcement. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires contractors and subcontractors to request a determination of applicable prevailing wage rates by October 1, 2023. Requires MDL to conduct a hand survey if it finds there's no applicable rates, and allows contractors and subcontractors to come into compliance before March 1, 2024, before a civil penalty may be imposed. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 548, Financial Regulation, Maryland Community Investment Venture Fund Establishment, Access to Banking Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions that provided for an exception to procurement rules and makes technical changes. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 686, Financial Regulation, Modernizing Licensing of Non-Depository Institutions and Elimination of Branch License Requirements. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 775, Public Safety, Emergency Management, Consumer Protections Against Price Gouging. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendments number 1 and 2 are technical. I'm so sorry. Move so much to be considered a reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendments number 1 and 2 are technical. Amendment number 3 strikes the definition of essential goods and services and authorizes the governor to determine which goods and services are essential, alters the allowable price percentage increase, and authorizes a person to go above the allowable price percentage increase under a certain circumstance, and strikes penalty language relating to a private cause of action. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 901, Consumer Protection, Online Products and Services, Children's Data. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters and adds certain definitions, adds factors that a business must consider when determining whether an action is in the best interest of a child, alters the date by which the provision would apply, makes violations to the bill an unfair, abusive, or deceptive trade practice, and makes various clarifying and technical changes. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now to adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 990, Frederick County Alcoholic Beverages, Class B-HTF, Hatchet Throwing Facility License. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 alters the fee for Class B HTF licenses from $1,500 to $160. Please move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1000, Alcohol and Tobacco Commission updates. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 adds language concerning zoning violations to certain tobacco licensing statutes, clarifies language concerning tobacco deliveries and premium cigar and pipe tobacco, and authorizes the comptroller or the ATC to destroy rather than sell contraband. Amendment number 3 requires the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women-Owned Business Affairs to contract for a study for the distribution tier of the alcoholic beverage industry in the state. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1011, Public Safety, Refrigerants, Limitations on Use. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered a reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 clarifies that no provision of the state's local building code or other law or regulation may prohibit the use of certain substitute refrigerants except in certain circumstances. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1165, Alcohol and Tobacco Commission, Technical Corrections and Clarifications. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation. Report number 10. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 550, Maryland Energy Administration, Energy Programs Modification, Clean Transportation and Energy Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Okay, here we go. Amendment number 1 for the EV recharging equipment rebate program. First, increases the annual cap for the entire program to $2.5 million. Second, increases the caps for rebates that individuals or business entities may receive. And third, authorizes the Maryland Energy Administration to offer additional benefits for recharging equipment in certain multifamily housing, planned urban developments, and condominiums. Number 2, for the medium-duty and heavy-duty zero-emission vehicle grant program. First, alters the maximum amount of grants to be 75% of incremental cost. Second, clarifies vehicle and equipment qualifications for grant eligibility. Third, establishes certain preferences for grant eligibility. And fourth, increases the annual appropriation for the program to $10 million. Third, for SEEF, expands the pool of persons eligible to benefit from loans and grants from SEEF for the creation of new Tier 1 renewable energy sources. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title, recognizing the minority leader?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If the floor leader would indulge me for a question or two, particularly with respect to the amendments, the bill seems to have multiple components, as I think you alluded to. Is there an overall cost now for the bill as amended? I heard you mention one of the programs had been modified and said there would be a mandated appropriation. I think you said of $10 million. That's just for one of the programs in the bill. Is that correct?
Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you. Yes. Let's see. I have the fiscal impact. Special fund expenditures increased by $4.6 million in FY 2024, at least $8 in FY 2025 and 2026. All of this has been budgeted. It's all taken care of.
So it's adding up to essentially about an $8 million aggregate program when you combine all of the different elements of the bill. Is that fair?
I went to law school, so I didn't have to do math.
Me too.
So
All I know how to do is divide by 3, but that's fine. So I guess I had another question then. You indicated at the end that there had been some amendments adopted or clarifying language, and you said something about grants or a grant program for people to establish a Tier 1 source. Am I correct? I'm certainly far from an expert on it. Are Tier 1 sources only solar and wind, or do they include other components, other energy generating mechanisms?
All the non-carbon energy, I'm told from council.
Okay. And so how much, if you can, what is this grant program? How will that work to create grants for people to create non-carbon energy? I know it's not just solar and wind, but I think it's, a lot of it is solar and wind. How would that program work?
So this program already exists.
Okay.
And it has been working. All we're doing is changing some of the recipients. So this already has been happening.
Who are we changing the recipients to?
So we're changing the definition of low-income residents of the state to comply with definitions that we used last year. So that's one. And then we're also, actually that's it.
Okay.
We're doing it in 2 different sections. That's what we're doing.
And so does the subsidy then go directly to the low-income resident, or does it go to the company or the entity who's trying to develop, I'm just using for an example, a wind project or a solar project? Because what my understanding is once the watts of energy go into the grid, they can't tell you this is from wind, this is from solar. So I'm wondering, how are the payments going to these low-income folks to say, hey, you're going to quote-unquote buy wind and solar energy, even though there's no way to really divvy it out, and we're going to offset the cost, or does it go to the developer?
So the grants go to the businesses that provide the energy in these low and moderate communities.
Okay, so not necessarily the developer of the generating project, but the company who signs you up, so to speak, to be trained, because we've deregulated our energy sector to an extent that you can now sign up and say, you're all still getting the energy from the same line, but you say I'm buying it from such and such company as opposed to the chiefly regulated utility in but you're probably at Pepco, something like that.
Yes.
Okay, and
No.
I didn't mean to cause any consternation. I'm just trying to figure out. I certainly would be happy if the speaker wants to recognize the chair.
Chairman of
I'll be your huckleberry. Basically, this is going for the generation, the people that are creating it, not just who's selling it and locking people to the individual contracts.
Okay, so it goes for individuals who actually, I would presume, then own the wind or solar project and sell those watts into the grid.
We're creating the new Tier 1 energy sources, correct?
And the part of the reason that I ask, and you may know or may not know, to my knowledge, there are not any operating wind projects in the state of Maryland except in Garrett County. Has that changed over the last year or two?
It has not. We have 2 in a pipeline right now, though.
Okay, one in the pipeline, I believe, is in my county, in Allegheny County. And I guess that's the question is this going to incentivize those wind projects? Because I can tell you that wind projects, most of you have never had a wind project try to come to your community, they're very, very controversial because they take up a lot of land, and depending on where you put them, they have a lot of pushback from people in the community. So I'm wondering if we're creating a grant program to incentivize wind projects, where are the wind projects actually slated to go?
Well, and again, the ones that are already slated to go, this has nothing to do with them. This is, again, new creation, not ones that are in the planning. We're trying to get this up and running, so we need to incentivize these companies to come in and create new wind projects. So the 2 that are in the pipeline, including the one in your county, they're not going to be incentivized by these grants.
Okay, so my county's developer won't get any of the incentive to do the project, even though I think they've been fighting for it for 14 years. They've had a very hard time. They've been to the Public Service Commission 2 or 3 times. They've been to the Court of Special Appeals 2 or 3 times. How much, and if whoever knows this, I'm fine. How much is the specific grant program for these Tier 1 renewable expenditures, these companies to try to get a wind or solar or other project?
I'll yield back to the floor leader for this.
Okay, thank you.
Floor leader? Which one?
I'll yield to the delegate from other delegate from Montgomery.
I feel like I'm getting, triple teamed up here, Madam Speaker. I don't know.
Thank you, Madam.
You asked the question.
Thank
so.
you, Madam Speaker.
I'm just pivoting all the way around. It's not fair.
So let me clarify what I think is happening in this bill. So what this bill does is this is focused on clean transportation and tax credits to clean transportation. The original version of the bill looked for funding for those tax credits, and it found some funding in a section of the CEF portion, which in 2019, we designated alternative compliance payments for the solar RECs to go into a pot to go to low-income individuals to get solar energy on their homes or community solar. So that was done in 2019. ACPs rose, the pot grew, and so originally when they were looking for funding for clean transportation, it looked like that might be a useful pot. And so the original bill had the money coming from that pot for clean transportation. In subsequent conversations, it was determined, no, it made more sense to keep that for grants for low-income individuals to get solar. So we're not talking about wind, we're not talking about large solar development, we're talking about low-income individuals, household, and community solar, which is where that can go. So the clarification that was made was the amendment went from moving that money to transportation to keeping that money exactly where it was, but expanding from just low income to low and moderate income. So there's nothing in this bill about wind development, and there's nothing in this bill about large solar development. The clean energy grants that are referenced are the ones that are for transportation and readjusting low to low and moderate income for the solar.
Okay, so then there is no money going to a commercial grade wind or
That's
solar
correct.
or other tier one developer. It's
That's
going
correct.
to what's defined as a low and moderate income household to put solar panels on your house or to do something in a community network that you're directly drawing the power from.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And so I have a question for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
Which one of us?
Which one? Yeah.
Whoever chooses. I'm looking in the bill on page 3, and it's saying, well, I saw that we had just mentioned some amendments, but we would change the zero emission vehicle grant issued by the administration under section for up to 20% was amended out to be 100%. Am I correct on that?
No, it is 75%.
So it's now, that's what the latest, so what?
75% of incremental cost, yes.
Okay, so, and we're talking about low income individuals, am I correct?
No, not this portion.
Okay, so on page 4, it says incremental cost means the difference in price of a conventional model vehicle and a zero emission model that is attributable to the functional features of the vehicle. So there's a delta in between there, I'm assuming, between. So what type of vehicles are we talking about there?
What type of vehicles are we talking about? We're talking about the difference between internal combustion engine, medium and heavy duty trucks, and the zero emission vehicles, medium and heavy duty trucks.
So buses, am I assuming?
Yes.
Okay, so so then underneath of that it says the cost to retrofit a conventional model vehicle to operate a zero emission vehicle. So is the plan to take all of our conventional combustion engine buses and switch them to?
Retrofitting has been amended out. There's no retrofitting.
So that's what you just amended out.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Is there any further debate? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 639, restrictions on use solar collector systems, alteration, favorable amendments, number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The bill as amended. The bill alters statutory provisions that prohibit unreasonable restrictions on land use related to installation of solar collector systems under specified circumstances. Specifically, the bill states that the restriction on use is unreasonable if application of the restriction on a particular proposal is, number 1, increases the installation cost of a system by at least 5%, or number 2, reduces the energy generated by the solar collector system by at least 10%. The amendment establishes an alternative set of qualifications for an individual who may prepare certain documentation to show a restriction on land use related to the installation of solar collector system is unreasonable. Move the amendment, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 14. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 614, Department of Aging, Dementia Care Navigation Programs. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 adds sponsors and makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 renames the program the Long-Term Care and Dementia Care Navigation Program and makes conforming changes. Clarifies that cognitive screenings rather than assessments would be conducted under the program. Specifies that each area agency will develop a program and implement the program subject to the limitation of funding. Adds providing information and referrals to long-term care services to the duty of the program, and alters the formula for funding to consider the number of individuals likely to need long-term care and dementia services in each jurisdiction. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1060, Cremations or Natural Organic Reduction Regulation. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendment number 1 is technical, moves so much to be considered the reading of the amendments. My
So
apologies.
order.
Amendment number 1 is technical and adds co-sponsors. Amendment number 2 authorizes the Director of the Office of Cemetery Oversight and Board of Morticians and Funeral Directors to adopt regulations establishing a process for regulating crematories that utilize natural organic reduction. Move the amendment.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Madam
Favorable
Speaker.
report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could I ask the floor leader a couple questions on this bill?
Floor leader.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Could you tell me specifically what the bill does?
Yes, this bill expands the definition of cremation to include the process of reducing human remains to soil through natural organic reduction. It also authorizes the Director of the Office of Cemetery Oversight and Board of Morticians and Funeral Directors to adopt regulations establishing a process for regulating crematories that utilize natural organic reduction.
So how exactly does the process work?
So the process works through the remains are actually put in a vessel and they are heated to 131 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not put into the soil by itself. They use wood chips and other natural items for the decomposition of the body.
So how does that differ from cremation?
So cremation is the actual burning of the body, and one of the things about the cremation is that it has a very high carbon emissions as a result, where NOR, natural organic reduction, does not.
So what remains at the end of the process?
So at the end of the process, the body is incorporated into soil, which can be used for growing plants, can be used for conservatory gardens.
So the bones and everything are basically disintegrated?
Yes, sir.
And then there's no formal burial. We're going to put this in compost?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
There's no formal burial. We're putting the remains in compost?
The family can actually use the remains. They can use them for spreading as they're used in the cremation process, or they, as I said, can be used for the purpose of growing plants, flowers, or a conservatory garden.
All right. Does any other state do this, do you know? For
Yes,
human
there are
remains?
actually 6 states that currently do it. Give me 1 minute. Those states include California, Washington. Hold it, give me 1 second, please. I do have the answer for you. I'm sorry.
Okay, I mean, I don't need to know the specific states. There are 6 other ones you said? 6 other states?
Yes, there are 6 states that currently do it. Maryland would be the 7th if we chose to
Okay.
do this.
And I noticed there was some opposition to the bill. Is that opposition still remain?
The opposition remains with the current head of the funeral directors. However, there are a number of other supports.
But they felt it shouldn't be under the guise of a cremation. There should be a separate section for this so it could be properly regulated. Was that addressed or not?
Yes, that has been addressed in that it would be two. It would be divided between the. I'm sorry. So it's based on existing language for organizations that are currently established for a crematory operator.
But they felt that it should be a separate section in the code and not included with the cremation. Was that changed in the bill, amended? Did your amendments address that or not?
What'd you say? It actually authorizes the board to adopt their own regulations.
Okay. And then there was another individual that testified that used chemicals. You said it's more of a burning process with wood chips and stuff. Are chemicals also used in the process?
So there are no chemicals used, and I did not say it's burning. I said the heat that comes out of the process is what causes the decomposition. So there are no chemicals used.
Okay, so we're still using what, fossil fuels?
I'm sorry?
We're still using fossil fuels?
No, they're using wood chips, and they're using other natural organic items for the decomposition. The body goes into a vessel, and inside of that vessel, there are wood chips and other natural decomposing products. And it's also an aerated system, so it prevents the problems of odor. And as I previously said, there are no chemicals.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Anne Arundel.
I just see from the religious and medical concerns in the opposition to this bill, a lot of things I think need to be looked at and perhaps some amendments. So would it be possible to hold this bill until the next voting session?
Chair of the committee.
Today, until the next voting session today, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaker.
Later this session. Is there any further debate? Hearing none. It will be special ordered to the end of this. It'll be today, so until if you can get it done. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1244, Maryland Holocaust Remembrance Day. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment 1 alters the preamble and adds co-sponsors. Move the amendments. Thank you.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 15. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 475, Advanced Practice Registered Nurse Compact, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1272, Maryland Insurance Commissioner Enforcement, Specialty Mental Health Services, and Payment of Claims, Sunset Extension, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 16. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 702, Healthcare Facilities, Nursing Homes, Acquisitions, and Licensure. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Floor leader.
Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments. First amendment, it adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 includes additional quality of care metrics for MHCC to include in its written findings and recommendations. Amendment number 3 requires MHCC to conduct a study on expanding the Certificate of Need program to nursing homes that also assesses elimination of rooms with more than 2 beds and otherwise addresses the issues related to the acquisition of nursing homes. Madam Chair, please move the amendments. Madam Speaker, please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 774, Assisted Living Programs, Unlicensed Programs, Resident Abuse and Neglect. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 names the bill the Senator Dolores Kelly Residents of Unlicensed Program Protection Act and makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 specifies that the Office of Healthcare Quality will investigate an allegation if the department does not. Adds exploitation to the allegations that be investigated. And amendment number 3 authorizes the department to adopt regulations. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 815, Breast and Lung Cancer, Establishment of Screening Awareness Program, and Insurance Coverage and Cost Sharing. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 adds sponsors and makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 strikes requirements for the department to establish a new program, strikes the breast cancer screening mandate, and clarifies the language regarding high deductible health plans. Amendment number 3 requires the department to conduct an assessment on current outreach, education, and health disparities in cancer screening and establish a stakeholder work group. Move the amendments.
The question for the House is adoption of the favorable report as adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1217, Maryland Medical Assistance Program and Health Insurance Required Coverage for Biomarker Testing. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment 1 adds sponsors. Amendment 2 delays implementation of the Medicaid provisions until July 1, 2025. Amendment 3 clarifies the definition of biomarker testing. Amendment 4 strikes language that would have included coverage for testing supported by specific consensus statements. Strikes language on prior authorization, requires the Department of Health to issue a report by December 1, 2024 on the fiscal impact of biomarker testing under the bill and data on the use of biomarker testing by race and ethnicity, and anticipated fiscal and access impacts of expanding coverage requirements for biomarker testing under Medicaid, and requires the MHCC to study the impact of biomarker testing coverage, including an analysis of the impact of providing access to biomarker testing to individuals based on race, gender, age, and public or private insurance. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Who got up? Someone call my name, but okay. Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 37. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 436, Prince George's County Alcoholic Beverages Development District License. Favorable report is amended. Adopted.
Yes, the maker of the.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment 633125/1.
Amendment number 1.
Be so much be considered the reading the amendments.
So ordered.
So these amendments conform the bill to language that was passed out of the Prince George's County House delegation, but due to administrative error was not sent to the Economic Matters Committee and was voted unanimously out of Prince George's County. Thank you. Please move the amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Debate. Gentlemen from the Eastern Shore.
I want to first thank the maker of the amendment for giving the amendment to the floor leader in advance. That's much appreciated. Thank you. I urge the body to resisting this amendment. I urge the body to resisting this amendment. I stand before you today to let you know that not all floor amendments are bad. Some floor amendments are well conceived, and this amendment is. Some amendments are also well intentioned, as this amendment is. Some amendments will actually make a bill better. This amendment does just that. I know that our first instinct is to push the red button. Please don't do that today. Push the green button. I ask that we chart a new course today, starting today, that we vote for floor amendments. This floor amendment is very near and dear to my heart, and I hope that you all find it in your hearts as well to vote green on this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
The maker of the
I thank my colleague from the Eastern Shore for his comments, and I hope that the capital budget looks favorably on his district. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Are there any further debate or any additional amendments? Hearing none, the bill. Excuse me? Oh, I was just rushing it along. Okay. On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Oh, one person.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I urge a green vote on this amendment. It's so dear to my heart. I'm going to thank you all.
Speaker.
Explain my vote.
I'd just like to
Yes,
say it's
gentleman
not.
from the Eastern Shore, yes, go ahead.
It's just not that difficult, folks, to hit the green button on amendment. Did you see that? Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Explain your vote.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that the Environment and Transportation Committee frequently accepts amendments if they make sense.
It's not on this bill. Any further debate? Clerk will take the call. 133. Unanimous for the members that are here. So. Any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 38. Clerk will read the bill.
Also 803, State Retirement and Pension System, Administrative Fees. Favorable report is amended, adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And with that, I would like to turn this over to my colleague from the Eastern Shore, if that's permissible, please.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk, 603025/1.
Amendment number 1.
So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment is requiring a fiduciary of the pension benefit plan to perform all duties solely in the pecuniary interest of participants and beneficiaries and to exercise certain care, skill, prudence, and diligence in protecting the pecuniary interest of participants and beneficiaries. The amendment goes on, but the rationale behind the bill, or the amendment, is to make sure that when there is investments based on environmental, social, or governance, that we certainly make sure that we are thinking about our pension system and the beneficiaries, and that we're making the best investments possible, which is the ultimate goal of any pension system, is to make sure that we're fully funding to the best of our ability, but also investing to the best of investors' capacity to maximize returns. And I'd ask the body to move the amendment.
Recognizing floor leader.
Thank you, and thank you for delivering the amendment to me ahead of the floor today. I appreciate it. Colleagues, I'm going to interrupt our Eastern Shore colleagues' kumbaya moment and ask you to resist this amendment. Our existing statute requires the state pension system to be run with a fiduciary responsibility. So if this amendment is truly about asking our pension managers and investors to be fiduciaries, it is redundant. That language is throughout the code that exists today. But this amendment is instead about requiring our pension system to ignore environmental considerations, even if they are financially relevant. It removes the necessary and vital tool from our toolbox of our investment program, and I ask you to resist this amendment.
Gentleman from Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'll close briefly. You know, we, in this market environment, I think it's always important to remind ourselves, but also those that invest our dollars, the importance of investing for the benefit of the pension holders, the system itself. We would expect, I think, the economy to have a more difficult time in the near term, even than we are currently having, and the bill, or the amendment, I think is well intentioned, and Madam Speaker, I'd move the amendment.
Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to point something out. We're talking about ESG funds. And all of the available financial studies and literature, I'm looking at a study in 2022 from an individual with the London School of Economics and Columbia University Business School. I'm assuming they're pretty good. And they studied the Morningstar Index of funds for funds that call themselves to be ESG or sustainability funds, and they find two things that are remarkable. Number one, the funds consistently underperform the market, such to the extent that if our pension managers are saying we feel like we have to invest in these funds for ESG reasons, to promote environmental policies, social policies, goals affected therewith, they are in effect going to lose money for our pension program relative to investing in more broad-based or non-ESG funds. And number two, this is really ironic. Their study, also the study recently performed by economists with the University of South Carolina and University of Iowa, conclude that in fact the ESG funds, many of the stocks and companies held in them, have worse records for labor and environmental compliance than companies held by other non-ESG funds. And they find, in fact, that what's going on is a little bit of a scam where a company and its managers say, we're underperforming our competitors to the market and our stock's not doing very well. So how do we attract investments from these massive pension funds and other huge institutional investors? We relabel ourselves as ESG. And we say, hey, I didn't do that great last year in terms of making you money. Company's not going so well, but you know why? Because we took the environmental concerns first. We took social and governance concerns first. And they attract investors, BlackRock, pension funds, other things of that nature, to say, we'll put the money in those funds, even though they're losing, even though they may be poorly managed, because we want to be able to say in our prospectus, we back ESG. All the amendment does, for my friend from the Eastern Shore, is very clearly say it is a responsibility of our pension fund not to act in such a way. I believe that the gentlelady from Baltimore County is correct. They have a fiduciary responsibility. But a fiduciary responsibility usually is only viewed in retrospect, whether you did something or didn't do something and whether it met that duty. This bill, this amendment, would provide that in a forward-facing way so that the people who are managing literally billions of dollars for our state's retirees, for our state's finances, understand you're just there to help make money for the plan and not to expressly say ESG is a goal of ours, not because we don't care about the environment, not because we don't care about social issues, but because none of this works. None of this works. It's not working in the real world. It's not working in the real markets. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The bill sponsor.
I don't believe this amendment has been vetted through the agency, has it?
Madam Speaker,
Yes.
so the answer to your question is this is a amendment being brought by the minority party with interest to make sure that we are properly investing our dollars in the pension system. So to ask me whether I had the time between when we saw the bill come through where we were able to special order it and get agency support, the answer is no, but I would certainly be willing to ask the question if given time to do that.
So without a fiscal note, we have no idea how this would affect our investments. The policies that we have now, the most recent policy we enacted last year was done after 6 months of careful study with both the agency and the constituencies, and we landed on our current law requires the investment program to consider everything that is relevant to an investment decision and then make the best decision as a fiduciary. I ask the body to resist this amendment.
I'll just quickly ask that we move the amendment, and I'll just make this one statement. It's hard enough to generate profits and returns when that is your focus, let alone when we're trying to change the world. So to the minority leader's point, I don't think anybody here is questioning whether or not there's a value in making sure that we make investments that have a global good or a societal good or a governance good. What I think I am saying in the amendment, and I think what we are saying to those that are going to support this amendment, is that there are time and places for everything, and that this amendment may not have been brought 3 or 4 years ago, but we bring it now because I believe it's important to direct and give the right guidance to our pension system. I have to believe that we are headed for some very difficult financial times. I got to believe that we also have been delaying this for a couple of years, primarily because of the COVID funding and the ability for individuals and businesses to get by with this influx of federal cash, and that the system is going to sort this out over time. I would hate to see our pension system in a rubber band effect, and I've said this a few times, in a rubber band effect snap when the system starts to go into recession, and that's the value of the amendment as how I'm bringing it.
Bill sponsor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've only been the Pension Oversight Committee chair for this session, but I have seen the commitment in the agency, and being a fiduciary is their top priority. They manage the investments that are counted on by more than 400,000 active participants in our pensions program. They take that responsibility entirely with the weight that you would imagine that they would have to. These are our teachers, our state employees, our judges, our law enforcement officers, and they not only feel a responsibility to them, but their spouses and their families. And as I said at the top, they are fiduciaries, and that is their primary responsibility, and I ask you to resist this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Are you yielding to?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can the floor leader please rise for a quick question? I remember seeing in 2019 that our pension fund was underfunded by about 65%. Do you know what that current percentage is? How much is underfunded at this?
So our funded status is at 76.6%.
So we're 76%
Right,
funded
and the
at this
budget
point?
we put together that we passed through this week funded our pensions at $75 million over what was actuarially required.
So there's a lot of questions around me that aren't mine. So my question is, when we look at this ESGs, did you take into account what just happened with Silicon Valley Bank, because they were heavily invested in ESGs and had to be written down, and that's what essentially caused a lot of the collapse, other than the equity imbalances that they had?
So the ESG legislation was passed throughout this body last year. So that is decided law. But how we came down on that legislation was that we chose not to tie the investment program to forcibly run away from ESG factors, nor did we require them to put ESG factors over any other considerations. We require our investors to look at all factors when making a decision, and I would suggest everyone, when making decisions in your personal life that are financial, that you look at all factors to those decisions. So the amendment before us today would tie their hands and not allow them to look at factors that are really important. So I ask the body to resist the amendment.
And those factors are changing quickly as of right now, and I'm not trying to scare anybody in this chamber, but we have a banking crisis on our hands. And you have to take that into account. And I do believe, if you look at the ESGs, they are all underperforming, and I think by untying our hands and actually investing in products that are actually going to return an investment historically strong, we're now looking to make a top priority these ESG products that are proving to be underperforming when based on the rest of the market.
So this amendment limits the investment program's ability to ensure we have the safest, soundest, and most financially stable fund possible and sustainable fund possible. So I ask the body to resist the amendment.
I think what the amendment does is untie our hands from what we did last year, which puts us in a very dangerous place. With that, I push the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Maker of the amendment.
Madam Speaker, so this is model policy that was being given to the amendment office. It has been vetted. It would work if we put it in place. I'd move the amendment.
So we don't have, oh, I apologize, Madam Speaker.
Go ahead.
But we don't have a fiscal note on this. But when Indiana was considering this amendment, they found that they would lose, their pension funds would lose almost $7 billion over a 10-year period if this bill was enacted. And Kansas rejected it when they found out their pension funds would lose $4 billion over a 10-year period if this was enacted. And I would say again that this is not something we determine on the floor on a Saturday morning. A change like this to our pension system needs to be fully vetted, and I would ask that you bring it as a bill next year, and we look through it and figure out whether this really would do what you think it will do. Thank you.
Gentleman still pressing his amendment?
Yes, please move the amendment.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 17. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 834, Electric Vehicle Charging Infrastructure Requirements, Electric Vehicle Charging Reliability Act. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires a participating electric company to file a corrective action plan if it fails to meet the required uptime standards, provides an exception to meeting the standard based on force majeure or vandalism, limits the program expansion for multifamily dwellings in an underserved areas to the end of 2025, and makes technical changes. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 969, Public Service Commission, Cybersecurity Staffing and Assessments, Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity Act of 2023. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Clerk will take the call. There being 133 members present, the House still in session. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 56. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 42, Courts, Judgments, Exemptions from Execution.
House Bill 42 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 110 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 42, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 135, Criminal Law, Controlled Dangerous Substances and Firearms.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 135, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 178, State Designation, State Spirit, Maryland Rye.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 178, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 271, 988, Trust Fund Funding.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 271, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 277, Montgomery County Alcoholic Beverages, holders of Class B-BWL Clubhouse Lodge license and Class 7 microbrewery license.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? Not, clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 277, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Also 283, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Gender Affirming Treatment, Trans Health Equity Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
The gentlelady from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We had a lively debate yesterday about this bill, but I wanted to bring some facts to the floor because there was some, I feel, misrepresentation of what's possible today with our modern medicine. On the floor yesterday, it was said that if someone changes their mind after having their penis removed, that they can actually have it put back and it can be returned to them. So I reached out to some medical professionals, and I'm going to share with you what I learned about the ability to reattach a removed sexual organ. Number one, the organ removed is not saved. It's oftentimes parts of it are used in the recreation of the new sexual organ for the other gender. So there is nothing to reattach. Oftentimes, what's used is skin from your arm to recreate a fake penis on the person. That penis will never function as a sexual organ the same way as the previous penis was. There is such thing, however, as a penis transplant. Johns Hopkins actually has a transplant program for this. They are one of 4 successful penis transplants in the world. 4. That is it. And they have very specific criteria for those who are actually eligible for this. The first is being a cisgender male. You are ineligible for a penile transplant if you are not a cisgender male per the Johns Hopkins website. I'm happy to send the website to anybody who wants to know. So if we are talking about allowing children to consent to first puberty blockers and maybe down the road, we have told them that they can cut off their body parts and then put them back on when they change their mind. That is a bold-faced lie. It cannot happen. They are losing something that they will never get back. Never. So I hope that the body really thinks carefully about what we're asking children to be involved with, because this is not quality science. And it happens from time to time that trade organizations who profiteer off of the trades that they are selling will push forward an agenda that is not in the best interest of our children. And that is exactly what's happening with this bill. And that is exactly what's happening with the medical trade groups that seemingly support this concept. Furthermore, many, many, many other places are going in the exact opposite direction. And for what? For what are we doing this? Under the erroneous claim that it's saving people from depression and suicide? No one on this floor reached out to me to get copies of any of the research on suicide and transitioning. No one, not a single person. I'm happy to share it with you because this is very scary and very serious. And if we're doing this under the guise that we're going to be helping children's mental health, it's not true. And I can promise you that in 10 or 20 or 30, I hope it doesn't take as long as lobotomizing did, some people who are still around on this floor will feel like they were on the wrong side of history with their vote today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Speaker. Excuse me. I'd like to respond, if you don't mind. First of all, the bill is not about children. Let's just be clear. It's not about children. So that's number one. It is true that if a penis is removed, it is not reattachable. That's not what is reattached. But as the good delegate said, you can reconstruct it. And that's what happens in the transitional surgery from female to male. A penis is constructed, so out of existing tissue. And then in those, there are the folks who are having concerns or regrets around having transitioned in this way is at 0.4%. Let me say it again. 0.4% of the people who have that surgery regret it afterwards and want to detransition, versus 30% of most other surgeries, like knee surgeries. You know, about 30% of the people regret having knee surgery. We're talking 0.4%, and if you dig a little deeper, the reason that they decide to detransition is because of the social pressure and stigmas that they experience after transitioning. So that is why we have to have all of the information available to these folks as they are working through the process. And it takes about 3 years to go from, you know, where you're using hormones to where you might decide to do sexual surgery, transition surgery. And it goes step by step by step. And they are informed and they evaluate. And when I say they, I am talking about the patient and the medical provider. And if in those extremely rare circumstances where the child's at risk for some, for some negative outcome, then it might be considered for a child. But again, the patient would be very aware of it. The parent would have to consent to it, and the medical provider would have to say it is absolutely medically necessary and indicated this as the most appropriate option for this patient. And the legislature would not be in the room making that decision for them. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam
Gentleman
Speaker.
from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could I ask the Florida leader a couple questions?
Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes.
Thank you. Could you tell me what reporting requirements are included in this bill?
The reporting requirements are that those entities that perform gender-affirming care are being asked to report that they're doing it, but they can ask that their identity not be named in a public way because of concerns about harassment that they've experienced.
Can you tell me specifically what data is being required? I know when we had the old abortion debate, there was concern about disclosure of personally identifiable information. I just was curious what this bill specifically asked as far as reporting.
Okay, so the bill requires the name and location of each healthcare provider offering gender-affirming treatment to program participants, the managed care organizations that have active contracts with each healthcare provider, the types of gender-affirming treatment provided by each healthcare provider, and the department will publish a report. But again, some of the names may be de-identified.
Okay, so I heard you talk about statistics on detransitioning, and actually there was an article in the paper that in Sacramento it's being hailed as the largest number of folks who detransitioned. It's the largest gathering of those folks harmed by gender ideology to date. And you mentioned the 0.4%. Will this bill also identify those who choose to detransition?
Since the bill covers, we're not identifying patients at all. So patients are not being,
So
the
I'm not
healthcare
interested
providers,
in an individual.
but the services, are being reported, and the bill provides coverage for detransitioning. So
Okay.
that would be.
So it would
be.
tell you there's X number.
Yes, it would, sir.
And is that where the 0.4% comes from the states who already do this under Medicaid?
Yeah, we're checking. This is a national study.
Okay. So while you're looking there, I guess my last question is, would the detransitioning procedure then also be funded by the Medicaid potentially?
Under this bill, yes.
So they'd be basically paying for it twice, taxpayers? All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam
Prince
Speaker.
George's.
Colleagues, I will proudly be supporting this bill, not because of anything to do with sexual organs or anything else. I actually had a real-life experience with a child that I was teaching. I happened to be teaching swimming. And the child was at the time the child started with me, was a male child, and he was 6 years old. And he was having much difficulty relating to other children. He was having much difficulty in the class that I was teaching. And this went on for several months, and in fact, well over a year. And finally, his mother realized that the child was really having trouble with, at that point, his sexual identity. And once the mother was able to figure that out, after much heartache and sorrow, including threats for the child to kill himself, threats for the child to harm himself, the mother finally figured out what was going on with the child, and then did finally get the child into counseling so that he could then start to live as a little girl. And he became Ariel, changed his whole approach and his dress, and of course he was 6 years old, so it was the beginning of a transition. And when she became Ariel, she completely changed, and she became a happy child. And the mother came to me at that point. We were discussing it. The mother came to me and said, "I am so happy that I have my child. My child is no longer threatening to kill herself. My child is no longer threatening to harm herself. She's getting along so much better. And I am so happy. My heart is so full." That mother and that child suffered for well over a year because they did not have access. They were not well off. They did not have access to the counseling and the medical care that they needed for that child. So when I vote for this bill, I'm going to vote for it for Ariel, because I don't want other children to have to wait so long to get the counseling and help that they need to become their true selves and to really live their lives in a way that they're healthy and happy. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from
Thank you, Madam
Calvert.
Speaker. What was just described is already covered under Medicaid. Already is. And we know that this bill is about children because yesterday we offered an amendment and it was rejected. And the amendment was to make these services available to individuals who are 18 years of age and older. That amendment was rejected. This bill is about children. Imagine a state where bills would pass requiring gender identity ideology to be taught in kindergarten. Imagine a state where children in elementary school are taught that pronouns are fluid. They can be a they or a their. Then imagine a state where miraculously there is a significant increase in diagnosed gender dysphoria as a result of the former curriculum that has been implemented and passed by this body. And then imagine a state that passes a bill that allows schools to provide mental health services for individuals that are experiencing gender dysphoria and does so with or without the parental consent. Then imagine House Bill 283, which seeks to engage in what I believe is child mutilation and child mutilation surgeries that cannot be reversed, and we know this. Today, according to the United Nations and the World Health Organization, more than 200 million girls and women alive today have undergone female genital mutilation surgery. It is considered a crime against humanity by the United Nations. And now here we are, creating a brave new world. Wouldn't Aldous Huxley be proud? A dystopia, experimenting on children when the science is not settled. I'm voting no. Thank you.
Gentlelady from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the body. I think the Vice Chair did an excellent job yesterday, referencing all the real medical associations, not trade associations, in favor of this legislation and this kind of procedures. All the reliable research out there supports it. The Vice Chair did a great job pointing out that this is about patients, parents, and their providers. She talked about medical necessity. And the thing is, you know, if this bill didn't pass this year, nothing would change for the children of Maryland. They would still have the opportunities for this. This bill is about the adults. People have asked me, people have asked me, why do I feel so passionately about this issue? I'm not trans. I don't have gender dysphoria. Well, we don't have representation in this House by anyone in the trans community. So myself and my 59 co-sponsors, we are your voice. We are your representation. We recognize that what is being said nationally, I won't reference the floor, I will say what is being said nationally about trans people are the same lies that were said about gays and lesbians 20 years ago. And that's part of the reason I feel the passion and the connection to our trans brothers and sisters, our neighbors, our community, our constituents in all of our districts. I would ask when people bring up the research, did you talk to the trans advocates? Did you ask them their experiences? Did you say, hey, what was it like growing up? Did you ask about what it's like to have their families shut them out? Did you ask what it was like to look in the mirror and not see the person they think they were? Talk to them. They are our humans. They have great humanity. We have a chance today to demonstrate to those in the gallery and those who are listening that we recognize that humanity. And if you didn't talk to the trans advocates, you probably didn't get a chance to talk to my student Thursday night, who spoke to me for half an hour, talking about the bullying, talking about the pain she suffers by the comments that she gets and what's happening around this country. And I assured her that we in Maryland have her back. And on behalf of her and every trans person's humanity, I urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the sponsor of the bill for her stirring comments just now. This is one of those topics that, frankly, before last year, I personally did not know much about, and I suspect many of you are in that same boat. You know, we all run on particular issues, we go door to door, we talk to lots of folks, and frankly, this is a relatively small population that this directly impacts, and it's just not something I had a lot of direct experience with. So I've learned a lot the last year. I've learned a lot listening to the now chair of the Health and Government Operations Committee in many, many, many meetings. I learned a lot from listening to the vice chair here on the floor. I even learned from the back and forth between the vice chair and some of the people who had questions about the bill. And one of the things I've learned is we're not really deciding very much here. We're not deciding whether or not people should have these procedures. That's something that's going to be decided between the patient and the medical professional. And these are medical procedures. You may not like those medical procedures for your own personal reasons. I may have a problem with open heart surgery, but these are medical procedures. We're also not deciding whether these procedures should be offered in Maryland. They already are. The private insurance market already covers these exact same procedures. This bill just covers the poorest among us who rely on state Medicaid. We're also not really deciding whether these are sort of legitimate for that purpose. The federal government's already done that. Medicaid's a match program. Our procedures are being matched by federal dollars, and lots of other states, I believe 20-something, are already doing this in some form. So again, this bill is about those who are poor and are relying on Medicaid having the same benefit that those of us who don't rely on Medicaid for our medical procedures have. It's a simple case of equity. And in fact, if you read the fiscal note, it thinks this bill may affect as few as 25 people. But that's fine with me, because those 25 people should be treated just the same as if it was me or my child going to our private medical provider with our private insurance getting care. And for that reason, Madam Speaker, I ask the body to vote green on this important legislation.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Madam Speaker, to explain my vote.
Explain your vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There has been a lot of talk about children. Does this apply to children? Does it not apply to children? We learned yesterday it does, but again today it's been said that it doesn't. It does. I encourage you to read the bill. If you read the bill, you will see this bill is for hormone therapy, puberty blockers. It also will allow alterations to the voice therapy, voice lessons, alterations to the abdomen, chest, trunk, alterations to the face and neck, alterations to the genitals and gonads, laser treatment, fertility preservation. This applies to children under 18, and we should be protecting the poorest of the poor and not allow them to castrate their bodies, not allow them to rob their future. Instead, let them wait till they're over 18. So just to be clear, this applies to children. Thank you.
Madam Speaker?
Yes, gentleman from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To explain my vote, I want to first thank the sponsor of the bill for bringing this back, for the committee and the committee chair for all the work that they've done to get this bill to this point. I'm proud to vote green on this bill because I recognize that it is about equity. It is about services that are currently being covered and provided, but not for certain groups of folks, and in particular, our transgender Marylanders. I heard a lot on this floor about kids and about children. And I share that concern, and my hope is that concern will extend to when we talk about charging kids as adults or lying to kids in order to coerce a confession. There's so many other things, but in this case, what we are essentially doing is allowing people to make a decision, and that includes the patient, the parent, and the provider, and it's something that I'm not only comfortable with, but proud to vote for. This is about recognizing people who live in our state, who do not have the kind of a health coverage that some of us do and may not have the means in order to get it. Proud to cast a green vote on there. And as someone who is a proud member of the LGBTQ+ community, I recognize this is about equity for a very forgotten but very important part of our community. So thank you to the sponsor. Thank you to everyone who's voting for this. And while this would help a lot of people, particularly trans folks, it will help Black trans people in this state who are currently seeking services and don't have the courage, coverage rather, in order to get the services that they need. This will provide that much needed relief. So thank you so very much, and I'm proud to vote green.
Gentleman lady from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In explaining my vote, the reason why I'm standing and pressing green on this is because I've lost loved ones to suicide, including my mother, including my cousin. And we all know that in this particular community, there's a high propensity for suicide. If we could even save one individual by providing this service, it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll. There being 93 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 283, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change on House Bill 135 from nay to yea.
Any other vote changes?
Madam Speaker, House Bill 42 to red.
Madam Speaker?
Yes.
House Bill 135, green to red, please.
Get your slips up. Any other vote changes?
Madam Speaker?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. HB 42 from green to red. Thank you.
Any other vote changes? Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 48. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1071, Criminal Law and Procedure, Cannabis Fines for Smoking in Public Stops and Searches.
House Bill 1071 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1071, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1149, Medicaid Waiver Programs, Waitlist and Registry, Reduction in the Wait Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1149, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1156, Pharmacist Therapy Management Contract Form.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1156, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1159, State Board of Dental Examiners, University of Maryland School for Dentistry Faculty, qualifying for examination.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1159, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1160, Maryland Pathway to Nursing Program and Advisory Committee Establishment.
It is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1160, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1186, Public Service Companies Annual Report on Votes Cast at Meetings of Regional Transmission Organizations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1186, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Vote change on House Bill 1149 from yea to nay. Thank you.
Madam
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Prince George's.
Vote change on House Bill 1071. I'd like to be recorded in the green. Thank you.
Carroll, gentleman from Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For House Bill 1071, my button did not work. I'd like to be marked as nay. Thank you.
Get your gold slips up here, please. Gentleman from Washington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Frederick, sorry.
Vote change on House Bill 1149 from yea to nay.
Any other vote changes? Yes.
Madam Speaker, vote change on 1149 from yea to nay. Thank you.
Any other vote changes?
Madam Chair?
Who?
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Speaker. I just want to make sure, 1149 from yea to nay.
I'll join the club, 1149.
Young lady from Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 1149 to nay, please.
Young lady from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 1149, yea to nay.
Any other vote changes?
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Yes, 1149 in the red, please.
Leaders, can you come forward, please?
Oh, I do need a slip. Hold on. I do, actually. You're on second reading. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Yes, it's the day after Tuesday.
Done my duty.
52. I believe.
Thank you. We're going to take a recess until 1:30. Don't get out of your seats yet. Any committees have any announcements? Economic matter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Economic Matters Committee will be voting at 12:45. 12:45. Please be ready.
Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to meet with my leadership group at 1 o'clock in the conference room in the committee offices.
Any other committees? Okay. All righty. There is some food that comes in a square box that's back there. Don't jump over each other. Yes, quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
$1:30. Took the call. There are 135 members present. Listen very carefully. Listen to the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, just a reminder, you can leave your stuff in here. The doors will be locked while we're all eating our pizza. With that, I move the House stands recessed until Saturday, March 18th at 1:30 p.m., Legislative Day, March 11th.